All right, here we go. The Panama Canal connects the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. It opened in 1914. The canal shortened shipping routes by thousands of miles, and it remains one of the most important waterways in the world. We're going to do the same strategy we did for the other one. Take deliberate pauses, and then if there isn't a pause, keep reading as best as we can to see if it makes sense. The Panama Canal opened in 1914 and connected the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, shortening shipping routes by thousands of miles, and this canal is still one of the world's most important waterways. That's pretty good, except for the and this. That's the only thing that makes me not say that's the best answer. Let's look again. The Panama Canal, which opened in 1914 to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, shortened shipping routes by thousands of miles and remains one of the world's most important waterways. See how beautiful that is? That's going to be our right answer, but let's keep reading. Opening in 1914, the Panama Canal, which was opened, shortened routes and connected oceans, and today is one of the most important waterways. All right, first of all, the Panama Canal is the most important thing. So the fact that opening in 1914 comes first pretty much should be a clue that that's not what we're going to be talking about. Maybe if it said in 1914 the Panama Canal opened, but even that's not good speaking. And so even though it's shorter than B, B is still the best answer. The Panama Canal connected the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. It opened in 1914 and it shortened routes by thousands of miles. So today it is important. Yeah, choice B. All right, let's look at the next one. The Harlem Renaissance took place in the 1920s. It was a flourishing of African American art, literature, and music. Writers like Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston gained prominence, and jazz spread from Harlem clubs to national audiences. Here we go. The Harlem Renaissance, taking place in the 1920s, was a flourishing of African American art, literature, and music, with writers such as Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston gaining prominence as jazz spread nationally. That's very good because if you look at each section, even though there's a lot of commas, none of them is a complete idea. The Harlem Renaissance, not a complete idea. Taking place in the 1920s, not a complete idea. Was a flourishing of African American art, literature, and music with writers. So each of those add to the further sentence. So A is probably correct, but let's keep showing why the others aren't. The Harlem Renaissance took place in the 1920s. And this. Right away, we were just like, no. But also, the Harlem Renaissance took place in the 1920s is a complete idea. And then look at the next one. And this was when African American art, literature, music flourished, and writers like complete idea. Writers like Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston gained prominence. Complete idea. So it's basically taking three sentences and putting all these commas in it to make it look wonderful, which is not the right way to do it. So A is still our best answer, but let's take a look. The Harlem Renaissance was African American art, literature, and music in the 1920s, and writers gained 20s, and writers gained prominence and jazz spread. All of this was happening in Harlem. I think we can agree that's not pretty good. In the 1920s, the Harlem Renaissance flourished with art, literature, and music. Writers like Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston gained prominence, and jazz spread from Harlem clubs. Again, see, unlike A, those are three unique ideas, like C, combined together. It sounds better than C. It was written better, but it's still like, oh my gosh, that's so long. Let's look at A one more time. The Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance, taking place in the 1920s, was a flourishing of African American art, literature, and music, with writers such as Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston. Separate ideas, none of them complete without being put together as a whole. Number 6. So A was the correct answer. Gregor Mendel studied pea plants in the mid-1800s. His experiments revealed principles of inheritance, like genes, like getting DNA and genetics from different parents. His work was largely ignored during his lifetime, but around 1900, scientists rediscovered his papers. All right, we're going to do our same strategy and look where the commas are, look where the pauses and other semicolons are, and say, are these complete ideas or do we need them to be part of the whole? Gregor Mendel studied pea plants in the mid 1900s and we could pretty much stop there, but let's keep going. Gregor Mendel studied pea plants in the mid 1800s, and his experiments revealed principles of inheritance, but this work was largely ignored in his lifetime until around. And but this, not the right answer. Gregor Mendel studied pea plants in the mid 1800s. His experiments, complete idea. His experiments revealed inheritance, complete idea. His work was ignored, complete idea. And in 1900 rediscovered. Still, no, this sucks. All right. Too many complete ideas put together as one. Studying pea plants in the mid 1800s, Gregor Mendel revealed principles of inheritance, but his work was ignored until rediscovered by scientists in 1900. Now, look at this. Here we have and his but this, and I was like, that can't be it, right? But here we do need to have the but because it contradicts the previous statement. So these two sentences are very, very related. So this is a solid choice, but let's check letter D. Because remember, it's not always the shortest response. It's the best response. Gregor Mendel studied pea plants, revealed inheritance, was ignored, and discovered in 1900. Yeah, I think we all know that that sucks. Letter C. Moving on to our last question. The Great Wall of China was built to protect against invasions. Construction spanned dynasties. The wall stretched thousands of miles, and today it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. All right, let's take a look. Built to protect against invasions over many dynasties. Good pause, not complete thought. So we got to keep reading. The Great Wall of China stretched thousands of miles and is today a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That sounds pretty gosh darn wonderful, but let's see what the other ones are. The Great Wall of China was built against invasions, and it was built for many dynasties, and it was long, and today it is UNESCO. Well, first of all, it's not UNESCO. That's like the United Nations Education, Science, and Cultural Organization. So it's not UNESCO. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And there's just too many, and it was, and today. All right, the Great Wall of China stretched thousands of miles. Good. Was UNESCO and was built? No. It wasn't UNESCO, and it was. Seriously? The Great Wall, which stretched thousands of miles, was constructed by dynasties against invaders, and now it is UNESCO. So, first of all, it should have been the Great Wall of China. Okay. Was constructed by dynasties against invaders, maybe, and now it was UNESCO. Let's look at the first sentence one more time. Built to protect against invasions over many dynasties. Clarifying statement. The Great Wall of China stretched thousands of miles and is today a World Heritage Site. I want to just mention one thing before we end. Notice how there's not a comma before this and. There's not a comma because this is not a complete idea. Is today a UNESCO World Heritage Site is not a complete idea because there's many World Heritage Sites. So that's why we don't have a comma. If we had, and it would be not a good sentence, but if we had comma, and it is today a UNESCO World Heritage Site, we would need the comma. But because this is dependent, this is clarifying what's coming before it, we wouldn't have a comma there. So A is the perfect bestest choice. See you soon.